Captain Cat by Inga Moore. Captain Cat loved cats. There were more cats on board his ship, the Carlotta, than there were sailors in his crew, which was why his sailors called him Captain Cat. After a hard day, there was nothing Captain Cat liked more than to settle down comfortably in his cabin with his cats. He would take out his maps and charts and study them, dreaming of wonderful places he longed to visit. Of course, he had visited lots of places already, but these were mainly trading ports, because that's what Captain Cat was, a trader. It has to be said that Captain Cat wasn't really a very good trader. Trading is a bit like swapping. You swap something you don't want for something you do. Only what Captain Cat wanted, more often than not, was a cat, which was how he ended up with so many cats. All the other traders laughed at Captain Cat. "Just look at him," they would say as they watched him hand over some priceless vase for another moth-eaten tabby. "Ha ha ha! No wonder he never makes any money." Then one evening, as Captain Cat sat studying his maps, he suddenly felt the time had come at last for him to see the wonderful places he had always longed to visit, and that if he didn't go now, he never would. So, the very next morning, when he left the harbor, instead of sailing east to the trading ports, Captain Cat sailed west. The other traders scratched their heads, wondering where on earth he was going. "Silly old Captain Cat," they said as they watched the Carlotta disappear into the distance. 4 days, Captain Cat sailed under a sky as blue as a periwinkle. Then the wind stiffened. Inky black clouds appeared over the horizon, and a terrible storm blew up. Captain Cat had never known one like it. All he could do was batten down the hatches and hope for the best as the Carlotta pitched and rolled through the mountainous waves. The sky was so dark it was hard to tell day from night, or for that matter, night from day. By the time the storm was over, Captain Cat had ended up miles off course. In fact, when he checked on his chart, to his surprise, he saw he had blown right off it, a good 6 inches over the lower left-hand edge, which meant that, while he wasn't lost exactly, Captain Cat now sailed on an unknown sea. And as he was just beginning to wonder if he would reach the edge of the world, when all at once he came instead to a remote and lonely island. "Hooray!" cried the queen of the island when she saw she had a visitor. As she rowed out to meet Captain Cat in her boat. But of course, not only did she meet Captain Cat, she met all his cats as well. Now there were no cats living on the island. Indeed, the queen had never seen a cat before. "What dear little things!" she cried, and she insisted Captain Cat bring every one of them along with all the handsome sailors in his crew to lunch at the royal palace. The Queen's mother, the Prime Minister, the Lord Chancellor, and the Mayor, everyone who was anyone on the island had been invited. But no sooner than they sat down to eat, and the soup was brought in, than out from behind the skirting boards of the royal dining room popped hordes of hungry rats. The Queen's footmen tried to fend them off, but the rats were too quick. Up the table legs they shot, and in among the soup plates. "Oh!" cried the Queen, turning bright red with embarrassment. These horrible, horrible rats!" "Don't you fret, your Majesty," said Captain Cat. He went outside to the royal courtyard where his cats were having fish for lunch. "Why have fish," he said to them, "when you can have rats?" Once they had got rid of the rats in the royal dining room, the cats got to work on the rest of the royal palace, and when the sun set, not a rat was left alive there to see it. "Oh, well done, you clever, clever cats!" cried the Queen with delight as she inspected the neat rows of corpses lined up on the royal palace floor. But it wasn't just the royal palace which was overrun with cats. Rats, I mean. It was the whole island. The Queen took Captain Cat to the royal treasure chamber. "See this," she said, waving careless hand over the sparkling diamonds, pearls like golf balls, and rubies as big as eggs. "Take as much of this as you want. Take all of it if you like. Only please, oh please, dear Captain Cat, let me keep your cats." So what did he do? Did Captain Cat give his cats to the Queen in exchange for her fabulous treasure? Well, yes, he did actually. Some of her fabulous treasure at least. Just enough to make him very wealthy. But before you cry, "Oh, how could he? Didn't he love his cats?" let me tell you. It was the cats themselves who had the final say. They made it quite clear where they wanted to be, and it was not on the Carlotta. They had been living on that little ship too long, and after enjoying the freedom of the island where they could do whatever they wanted, where they wanted, and when they wanted, they refused to go back on that boat. "Won't you change your mind," the Queen said hopefully, "and stay here with us?" Both she and her Prime Minister had grown rather fond of Captain Cat. But alas, Captain Cat would not. There were still those wonderful places to see he had always dreamed of visiting. "Well, you know where we are," said the Queen, and so after one long, last, tearful farewell to all of his cats, Captain Cat sailed sadly away. But the story doesn't end here, not at all. If anything, this is where it gets really good. For without his cats, Captain Cat found seeing the world wasn't much fun. So he sailed back to his home port, where he began to unload his treasure. "How did you get all that?" the other traders asked, him staring goggle-eyed at the sparkling diamonds, pearls like golf balls, and rubies as big as eggs. And when Captain Cat told them, they very nearly fainted on the spot. Then what do you think those traders did? They sailed away to find the island for themselves. For as they said, if silly old Captain Cat could get such jewels there, just for a bunch of cats, think what they could get for all their fine wares. Naturally, the Queen was delighted to have the traders turn up on her island with boats full of wonderful gifts, bangles and bracelets, necklaces and a new crown to wear, fabulous silken cloth in every color of the rainbow, which she had made up immediately into rah-rah skirts, oil paints to paint with, books to read, curly-toed slippers, boxes and boxes of delicious, delectable Turkish delight, kites to fly, bicycles to ride. There was no end to the gifts the traders simply showered on the Queen. "And to think they brought them all this way just for me," she said to her Prime Minister. "We must think of something really special to give them in return." Which is exactly what they did. The traders were waiting to load their ships with all their treasures they were expecting. "I'm afraid your gifts are not quite ready yet," the Queen told them. A few days went by. Still the traders waited. "Not long now," said the Queen. And they waited and waited. "Nearly there," she said after another few days. There must be an awful lot of treasure, the traders thought, if it's taking this long to count out. And they imagined the piles of diamonds and pearls and rubies getting bigger and bigger as the days passed. Finally the Queen said, "Here we are at last!" But where is the treasure? There was none to be seen. There was only a footman carrying a basket. "May we present to you," said the Queen, bursting with pride and pleasure as the footman handed the basket over to the puzzled traders, "our gifts, the finest our island has to offer. These little gems worth more to us than diamonds or pearls or rubies." "Aren't they just adorable?" And there, on a cushion in the basket, sat 6 of the sweetest little kittens, one for each of the traders. Those poor traders could not have been more disgusted. They took the kittens home and gave them to Captain Cat, which meant Captain Cat had his cats again, or rather, his cat's cats, and then he felt like sailing more than ever, and so he got to see those wonderful places after all, that he had always dreamed of visiting. But not a single one of them measured up to the remote and lonely island, which, as well as being very beautiful, was where his heart was. And so in the end, Captain Cat returned. "Hooray!" cried the Queen and the Prime Minister when they saw their old friend again. And surrounded by his cats, and his cat's cats, and later on his cat's cats' cats, Captain Cat lived happily ever after.